Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into something pretty significant. It's this rapidly strengthening AI alliance happening between the United States and the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We've been digging into a recent article that really lays out the motivations, the sheer scale of the money involved and what it all means. The implications are huge.
Absolutely. So our mission here, it's more than just summarizing. We want to pull out the really important nuggets for you from this material, unpack why this is happening, what each country really gets out of it.
And importantly, what it means for the bigger picture, right? The future of AI, global power, even national security.
Exactly. Because the analysis we're looking at suggests this isn't just like friendly tech collaboration. It seems to point towards a real play for dominance.
The significant geopolitical shift, potentially. It feels like big moves are being made.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. The reporting calls it a match made in heaven. What's that core idea? What makes it such a good fit?
Well, it's actually quite straightforward when you break it down. You've got the U.S., undeniably, the leader in making the most advanced semiconductor chips. That's the compute power AI desperately needs.
Right, the brains of the operation.
Exactly. And then you have the UAE and its neighbors, too, with just vast amounts of relatively cheap energy.
Which you absolutely need to power the massive data centers AI runs on. They're incredibly energy hungry.
Incredibly. So you see the synergy right there. Compute power meets affordable energy. And the article does note this isn't totally new ground. There's been a US-UAE alliance for, what, half a century?
Yeah, a long-standing relationship. But these recent high-profile visits, like the one involving President Trump mentioned, seem to have put tech and AI front and center.
Definitely feels like an acceleration, a focusing of the relationship on this new strategic area. There's a quote from Myron Z that sums it up nicely.
What's that?
He says, energy-rich Gulf nations join the roster of trusted partners just as U.S. data center grids hit their physical limits. It's perfect timing, really.
And the flip side, what does the UAE get?
Well, according to G, they get crucial access to advanced compute and talent. And that directly helps them pursue their own sovereign AI goals.
Sovereign AI goals. That sounds ambitious.
It is. The takeaway is the Middle East is poised to become the next regional AI hub. Big stuff.
That vision, becoming an AI hub, really speaks to the UAE's ambitions here. It's clearly more than just, renting out server space.
Oh, absolutely. The article paints a picture of a very deliberate mission. They want regional supremacy in AI.
Supremacy.
Yeah. And they see that as a way to boost their geopolitical clout, diversify their economy. The whole compute, not crude idea comes up here.
Right, moving beyond oil dependency.
Exactly, and just asserting themselves as a real technological power player globally.
And the reporting, citing Baghdad Garris, emphasizes that you just can't do that without compute.
It's non-negotiable. You need that raw processing power to train and run the kind of advanced AI models that lead the field. It's foundational.
So, faced with that reality, the UAE made a big strategic call.
A very clear one. They decided to essentially bet heavily on aligning with a U.S.-led AI future.
Which is really significant, especially considering the whole U.S.-China tech competition backdrop.
Hugely significant. It tells you a lot about where they see the future heading, or at least where they want to place their chips, so to speak.
And we see this playing out in concrete actions, right? Like with that Emirati AI company, G42.
Yeah, that was a really key example in the article. G42 consciously decided to divest from its Chinese partnerships.
Including, apparently, a big stake in ByteDance, like $100 million.
That's the figure reported, yes.
Yeah.
And the reason was explicit. Avoid potential U.S. sanctions and critically maintain access to that vital U.S. technology.
Especially the NVIDIA chips, they're essential.
Absolutely essential for high-end AI. So G42 made a calculated choice to prioritize the U.S. connection.
And it's not just about accessing hardware. They're also building their own stuff, like the Falcon AI language model.
Right, it's a two-pronged approach, it seems. Secure the critical supply lines from the U.S. while also developing their own foundational AI capabilities to build regional influence. It's quite comprehensive.
Okay, let's flip the coin. What about the U.S. side? What are Washington's goals here, and what policy moves are being discussed?
Well, according to the reporting, Washington's objective is pretty clear-cut. They want American companies to lead the global AI race, particularly against China.
Makes sense. Keep the edge.
And part of that is spreading American tech, getting US-based AI systems adopted around the world.
And there was mention of a policy change under the previous administration, potentially rolling back some Biden-era rules.
Yeah, an AI diffusion rule, as the article termed it. It imposed quite strict export controls on advanced AI chips, even to allies.
Okay, so the idea was maybe to loosen that up.
Potentially. But the article notes this sparked a debate. Some lawmakers, some security folks, raised concerns.
Worried about the tech ending up in the wrong hands, like China.
That's the core concern, yeah. The risk of sensitive technology leakage to rivals.
But there's a counter-argument cited from David Meyer. What's the U.S. perspective on why loosening controls might be beneficial?
Meyer frames it as having a distinct political angle. He argues it bolsters the U.S. compute supply chains while constraining China.
So strengthening allies helps indirectly weaken competitors.
That's the logic presented. It gives the U.S. an edge in the AI arms race, helping maintain that leadership position.
And this isn't just abstract strategy. We're talking massive real-world investments happening right now.
The numbers are pretty staggering. The article mentions hundreds of billions of dollars already committed to this whole initiative.
Hundreds of billions. And those deals mentioned during President Trump's visit, over $200 billion just with the UAE.
Yeah, and that contributing to over $2 trillion in investment agreements across the wider Gulf region. The scale is immense.
And we have specific projects named too, big players involved.
Right. OpenAI, Oracle, NVIDIA, Cisco, they're all reportedly helping build this thing called the Stargate UAE AI campus, scheduled to launch in 2026.
Stargate sounds ambitious. A $500 billion private sector AI fund.
That's what the report describes, yeah. Involving OpenAI, MGX, and SoftBank. It's a heavyweight consortium.
And things are already moving fast on the ground.
Apparently so. An initial 200-megawatt AI cluster is launching in Abu Dhabi next year. That gives the UAE immediate access to NVIDIA's latest chips, US tech, software. Wasting time.
This really feels like that pivot point you mentioned earlier, Mohammed Solomon's idea, compute, not crude. It sounds like the core of the U.S.-Gulf relationship is fundamentally shifting.
I think that's a key takeaway from the analysis. Solomon argues it's a massive shift. The relationship won't just be about oil prices and security anymore.
It becomes about tech.
Deeply technical questions, yeah. AI infrastructure, data centers, chip access, compute capacity. That becomes the new center of gravity for the relationship.
And he paints this picture of the Gulf's future role. Something about emerging markets.
Yeah, it's a fascinating vision. He suggests the Gulf could become this global hub offering compute as a service.
Compute as a service. Like cloud computing, but specifically AI-focused.
Kind of, yeah. But targeted specifically at emerging markets. Imagine, he says, the Gulf hosting large language models tailored for languages like Swahili or Hindi.
Wow. So providing the AI backbone for entire regions.
Exactly. Providing the infrastructure for data storage, model training, running the AI applications, positioning themselves as the AI leader for the emerging markets.
That is a profound shift in influence.
Suleiman really emphasizes that. He calls it a tremendous level of influence, a massive change from just being energy producers to being the back end for AI applications for a huge part of the world.
Which brings us back to that global AI race. The U.S. pushing its tech, competing with China.
Right. The reporting mentions Daniel Newman reiterating that U.S. push to diffuse its AI globally, get it out there.
And the American tech companies themselves are clearly playing a big role in this narrative. OpenAI, for example.
Yeah, OpenAI seems to see itself, or at least position itself, as a direct countermeasure to China's AI development. Well, Chris Lethane from OpenAI is quoted framing the future as potentially having two dominant AI models globally. One, China-led, which he links directly to the Communist Party.
Okay.
And the other US-led, which he describes as being based on small d democratic principles.
Interesting framing. Democratic AI versus authoritarian AI.
That's the dichotomy presented. And Lethane argues that countries focused on their own development, on nation-building purposes, might naturally prefer the democratic system.
Because it's perceived as more open, maybe less controlling?
That seems to be the implication. More conducive to independent growth rather than being tied to an authoritarian state's ecosystem. It's a strategic pitch being made to the world.
But despite that push, the competition isn't slowing down. Baghdad Garris had that quote about China.
Oh yeah, that was striking. China is catching up really fast, crazy fast.
Which just highlights the urgency, doesn't it? Why alliances like this US-UAE one, why the focus on chip controls are seen as so critical from the US perspective.
Absolutely. It provides the context for all these strategic moves. They feel they need to act decisively to maintain that lead.
So if we zoom out and pull it all together from this analysis, the core dynamic seems really clear. It's mutual need, isn't it?
Fundamentally, U.S. has the advanced compute, the chips. The UAE has the vast, relatively cheap energy AI desperately needs.
And layered on top are these huge ambitions, the UAE aiming for regional AI leadership.
Well, the U.S. pushes for continued global AI dominance, especially in the face of that intense competition with China.
And the sheer scale of money, hundreds of billions, trillions potentially, plus these specific policy choices about chip access, they're literally building the future infrastructure for AI.
Definitely reshaping the landscape. And maybe the most profound point is that fundamental shift in the U.S. Gulf relationship we talked about. From oil
To compute.
Right.
With the Gulf potentially becoming this massive AI service hub for emerging markets, it's a radical transformation.
really is.
So, thinking about all this, based on the article we've explored, here's something for you, the listener, to chew on. If the future of AI development is shaping up around these two major competing models, a US-led one and a China-led one, and countries are actively choosing sides, aligning based on tech access and maybe shared values.
Yeah, what does it actually mean down the line?
Exactly. How might that influence not just which AI tools get built, but also global politics, international relationships, and really the fundamental shape of the digital world? For you, wherever you are, and especially for people in those emerging markets looking to plug into this AI revolution, it's a big question.